Welcome back. Today, for like the 400th time, I'm going to do my January 2022 wrap up. I read American Dirt by Janine Cummins, which is an unbelievably controversial book about a migrant family. It is an extremely well written and very moving human story about human suffering mostly, and I love a good story about human suffering. Lydia's our main character, and she lives in a resort touristy town in Mexico, but her husband is a journalist, and she runs like a bookstore, and they have like a young son. He's like 7 or 8, I can't remember. His name is Luca, and they're like a middle-class family. They live like a pretty safe and like regular life. There is an increasing amount of cartel violence in their state and in their city. Husband publishes a news article about the new head of the cartel, and he revenge murders Lydia's whole family, but he leaves Lydia and Luca alive, and then they're basically traveling, trying to escape the violence, and they meet a pair of sisters along the way who are from Honduras, I think. I can't remember. I feel like they were from Honduras, and are also escaping cartel violence. This has a lot of controversy because Janine Cummins is not Mexican. She is white, but she is also Puerto Rican. And there were some like inaccuracies about from what I can tell, because I didn't like look that deeply into it, but mostly from the Goodreads reviews, it seemed to be about the food, which there's a lot of like extraneous detail about the food, but it's not like what the book is about. Like the characters in this book were like fully human and nuanced, and they had a lot of gravity, and the situation was really difficult, and I enjoyed it. Like I honestly liked the book, and so whatever, you know what I mean? I also read Sourdough by Robin Sloan. This is a book about a young woman who moves from Michigan to San Francisco to get a like really mentally taxing, but exciting tech job in programming. She is working for a company that makes human hands that will one day replace all labor. And while she's living there, she kind of like doesn't have a life outside of work, but she orders food from like a tiny little restaurant down the street from her, and she orders like every single day. And leaves San Francisco, and they bring her their sourdough starter, and they tell her to feed it. They're from like a mysterious culture that like lives in Europe that make music and bake sourdough bread. It's not really important. I mean, it's kind of interesting, but it's not really important. So our main character, Lois, starts like making the sourdough bread. There's something kind of supernatural about the sourdough starter, and it kind of like takes over her life. It's like kind of science fiction, but like not totally. I gave it 4 stars. I love this book. It's going on the list of books that I just feel like people should read if they want to know me, get to know me, understand me. I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 because I don't totally know that it deserves the ending. Like I don't think the ending is super clear. I actually don't think the ending is unearned, but I don't think the ending is super clear. It's definitely super weird and interesting. And I really loved this book. I read Thick as Thieves. I finished Thick as Thieves by Megan Whalen Turner, which is the 5th of 6 books in the Queen's Thieves series. This one's about Costas, who we met in the King of Aetolia, and Comet, who is a slave in the Mede Empire. He was a slave to the Median, the Mede ambassador to Aetolia, Nahusarish, who, by the way, if we're keeping track, is the person who cut off Eugenides' hand. He pressured Aetolia into cutting off Jen's hand. So Comet makes a very brief appearance in the Queen of Atolia. Is around and Costas is sent to Atolia, to the Mead Empire to rescue Comet. Jenna has plans for him. Mostly, I love this book because like The Thief, which honestly might be my favorite book in the series so far, is it's a travel book. Like, I love road stories. I love like road trip books, but I love books that are about a journey because I feel like you can do so much work with them. And it's so smooth. So they're traveling throughout the Mead Empire. There's danger, there's excitement, there's trickery. They arrive back in Atolia. There's more trickery. I just think that the relationship between Costas and Comet, it's so well like paced. Like Comet is initially like very afraid of Costas and also thinks he's kind of an idiot. And Costas is just kind of like an open, sweet dude. And so I gave it 5 stars. I gave it 5 stars for Costas. They're really good books, and I will probably do a video after I finish all of them. It's hard to talk about, you know what I mean? You don't know what I mean. I listened to The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I gave this 3 to, I don't know, stars. It's a World War II book. It's a book of historical fiction. It is definitely women's fiction. I don't know, like, I know Kristen Hanna has like apparently like 20 books, which I thought she only had like 4. She has like 20. As far as I can tell, they're all like women's fiction, and not as like a derogatory. About 2 sisters living in France. And during World War II, one sister is going back and forth. She's crossing mountains that I already forgot the name of. Sorry, my European geography is not very good. She's helping downed Allied airmen to cross back into Allied territory so that they don't get killed by the Nazis. And the other sister, the older sister, is just living in her like rural town in France, in occupied France, just trying to survive and like raise her daughter. But like there's something like very shallow and very, I don't think it goes, like, I don't buy it. Like, I don't know if it's the prose or something else. I just don't buy it. I read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This one was I don't know how to explain how I feel about this book. In the third, I gave it 4 stars, and it's a book about a girl who's like 20. She is starting at Yale as a member of Leith House, which is the 9th house, and they are the secret society who is supposed to oversee all of the rest of the secret societies at Yale, who practice in real magic to get fame and fortune, etc. and whatnot. The beginning of this book was pretty rough, but when I say the beginning, I literally mean the first 30 pages. In some ways, like, the first 30 pages come off like very very self-indulgent, like, oh, Leigh Bardugo went to Yale and she's from California. She has more than like surface level resemblances to Alex, but I do think at some point, like, Alex becomes her own character and not just like Leigh Bardugo wanting to like write a cool character. So and once I got into it, like, I thought it was really well written. The parts of this book that are really good are the mystery story, except that, like, the end is completely unearned. People I think are really disappointed by this book because they're like, I wish it was more about like the way that people who are rich and powerful keep getting away with shit because they're rich and powerful. And it's like, no, you don't need 1,000 novels about, like, we already know. Like, in your day-to-day life, if somebody's rich and powerful, you just know that they can get away with shit. But like, they're like, you don't need to keep writing books about it. Like, we get it. I mean, like, you can keep writing books about it, but you can't be like, isn't it crazy that rich and powerful people can do shit that regular people can't? Like, yeah, it is crazy. Moving on. Like, what do you want me to say? Anyway, I'm trying to say that I think the weakest part of this book are the parts of this book that are like trying to make a point about how rich and powerful people can do the things that we all know rich and powerful people can do. And it's like, isn't that bad? And it's like, yeah, it is bad, but I didn't need you to tell me in this book. I like the part where she was trying to solve the murder. And it was a well-written part of the book, and the other parts were like kind of flabby. I don't like, what do you want from me? But I did like it. It was 4 stars. I also listened to a nonfiction book called Eurotrash: Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas of a Dying Continent. This is by David Harsanyi. He's Hungarian. I also gave this 4 stars, so it was a pretty good reading month for me, all told. You might remember, or maybe not, I don't know. Last month being December, I read Ross Douthat's The Decadent Society, which is about like the decline of the West. And this book, Eurotrash, is like the more optimistic version of this book, because it tackles like a lot of the same issues, like declining fertility rates, free speech issues. This book is mostly about to say, like, you know, like, not that Europe is actually a dying continent, but Americans, you know, can see the problems in, you know, the US, like, damn, look at this, isn't this crazy? And to fix it, like, many Americans on the right and the left think that we should be more like Europe. And David Harsanyi, who is a conservative, I think, is like, we don't have to be more like Europe to fix the issues in the United States. We should actually be less like Europe. And he kind of highlights the ways that we're not like Europe, and how being more like Europe is potentially really bad for both, obviously, Europe, but also for the United States. The most most obvious are like the free speech issues. America has incredible and robust free speech protections that people are trying to undo. Capitalism, he's at least a free market guy, so he, you know, highlights the way that our free trade works in the US, but also in Europe, to the disbelief, I think, of some Europhiles in the United States, things like that. But also what was really interesting to me was like the way that the death of God in Europe is so like everywhere. What am I trying to say? Not so in America. Like, there's a growing number of people, like, I don't think any of my friends are really religious at all. I like this book. I thought it was really interesting and informative, and kind of like really clear in the points that it was making. So if you're interested in the death of Europe and like the decline of the West, but you don't want to read like a deeply cynical, I don't actually think Ross Douthat's book is like deeply cynical. If you would like to read a more optimistic book about the future of the United States, but are interested in the decline of the West in general, I think this is a good book, especially if you're a free trade person. If you're not a free trade person, you're probably not going to like this book. If you're not a free speech person, you're probably not going to like this book. If you're a free speech person, you're going to like this book. I love to read I love to read books that remind me to be thankful that I don't live in a country with hate speech laws, because God, the fact that some people like can't see it the obvious way that like that will get abused is insane. Are you sure? Like, just think about it for like 4 seconds. Oh my God. Anyway, that tirade over. That's it. Those are the books that are in January of 2022. I am going to reply to some comments now. So I will talk to you later, or then, or now, or in the past, or some other time. Bye!